My gut tightened the moment I pulled into my driveway. Let me tell you something about being an electrician for 15 years. You learn to trust that feeling in your stomach. It saved me from more electrical fires, bad wiring jobs, and contractors trying to screw me over than I can count. When something's about to go sideways, your body knows it before your brain catches up. My Phoenix suburban home had always been my sanctuary, the place where I could escape the chaos of job sites and demanding clients. But now, my wife Nicole stood in our garage waiting for me, and she wasn't alone. Some muscle-bound pretty boy was leaning against my workbench like he owned the place, his tattooed arms crossed, wearing one of those tank tops that screamed, "Look at me, I work out." I recognized him immediately. Zane Brooks, the guy who owned that trendy CrossFit gym downtown, where all the real estate agents and insurance salesmen went to pretend they were tough guys. Seeing him in my garage, touching my tools, felt like watching someone take a leak on everything I'd worked for. This was my space, where I kept the equipment that built Coleman Electric from nothing into something respectable. Nicole's expression was ice cold, calculated. Nothing like the woman who used to kiss me goodbye every morning before I headed out to wire up Phoenix's newest office buildings. Nothing like the kindergarten teacher turned real estate hotshot who once believed in our dreams of building something together. "We need to talk," she said, her voice sharp enough to strip wire. I stepped out of my work truck slowly, never taking my eyes off the gym rat. 20 years in construction teaches you to size up threats real quick. Exit routes, potential weapons, distance between you and trouble. Talk about what exactly? I kept my voice level, but every muscle was coiled tight as a loaded spring. "I'm leaving you," Nicole announced, lifting her chin like she was daring me to react. "I've been seeing Zane for 6 months, filing for divorce Monday." 6 months. The number hit me like touching a live wire. I didn't flinch, but my brain started calculating instantly. Right around the time those client meetings started running late. Right around the time she stopped asking about Coleman Electric's growing success or caring when I landed another big commercial contract. Mr. CrossFit stepped forward with this smirk that probably worked on desperate housewives at his gym. "Time to move on, old man," he growled, trying to sound intimidating. "She's with someone who can actually provide for her now." I had to laugh. I actually chuckled. "CrossFit, huh? That's cute." I rolled up my work shirt sleeves, revealing the scars that come with the trade, burns from live wires, cuts from metal conduit, the kind of marks you get from real work, not posing in front of gym mirrors. But see, I've been building this business for 15 years. I know exactly how to handle punks who think muscles make them dangerous. Pride got the better of him. Zane swung first, which was his biggest mistake of the day. I caught his wrist mid-swing using leverage I'd learned from wrestling I-beams into place on construction sites. In about 3 seconds, Mr. Tough Guy was face down on my oil-stained concrete floor, his arm twisted at an angle that made Nicole scream. "This is my house," I said quietly, keeping my voice colder than a Phoenix morning in January. "You want to leave? Leave. But you don't come into my garage and threaten me with your gym routine." I let him go, and he scrambled backward like a roach when the lights come on, clutching his wrist. Nicole's face twisted with pure fury. "You're both pathetic," she spat. "I'm taking half of everything, Brady. The house, the business, your precious trucks. My lawyer says it's a slam dunk." "Your lawyer can call mine," I replied. "But next time you bring muscle to intimidate me, make sure it's someone who's actually been in a real fight instead of whatever they teach at Planet Fitness." Zane's Mustang, because of course it was a Mustang, roared away moments later, Nicole's death glare the last thing I saw before they disappeared down the street. I stood there in silence for a long time, staring at the oil stain where the tough guy had kissed my garage floor. The weight of 15 years settled over me like lead. You know what the funny thing is? I wasn't even surprised. Looking back, I should have seen this coming from a mile away. I thought about our early marriage, back when Nicole was still the woman I'd fallen for. She'd been supportive then, patient when I worked 16-hour days building Coleman Electric, from a one-man operation into something real. I remembered our first crappy apartment with the broken air conditioner she called character building. How excited she got when my first big commercial contract came through. We celebrated with cheap champagne and Chinese takeout, like we'd won the lottery. She'd promised to build our life together while I built the business. For years, I believed her commitment was as solid as the electrical systems I installed, but success changed her, and not in a good way. The modest kindergarten teacher became a real estate agent chasing bigger commissions and flashier clients. The woman who once clipped coupons started carrying designer purses and complaining when I came home with honest dirt under my fingernails. After landing her first $1 million listing, everything shifted. Little comments about why I couldn't be a normal businessman instead of getting my hands dirty. Why other husbands wore suits instead of work boots. "You make good money now," she'd snapped during one of our fights. "Why can't you at least look the part?" I'd tried explaining that my hands-on approach was what made Coleman Electric successful. Clients trusted me because I could actually do the work, not just manage it from some sterile office. But every explanation fell on deaf ears. The woman I married was disappearing, replaced by someone who saw my blue-collar success as embarrassing instead of impressive. Now I know why. The signs had been there for months, clear as a short circuit if you knew what to look for. Her phone, once left openly on the kitchen counter, was now password protected and always face down. Those client meetings started happening at expensive restaurants way too often. New clothes kept appearing in her closet, stuff that cost more than what her real estate commissions should have covered, even with Phoenix's booming market. She'd come home late smelling like cologne I'd never bought her, claiming she was networking or taking some professional development course. I wanted to believe her excuses, I really did. But my instincts, sharpened by years of troubleshooting complex electrical systems, were screaming that something was seriously wrong with this circuit. Let me tell you something about electrical work. When you ignore the warning signs, the whole house burns down. I walked to my truck and pulled out the folder I'd been avoiding for weeks. Inside were bank statements that had started this whole nightmare. Nicole didn't know I'd been monitoring our joint account, watching unusual withdrawals and transfers that made no sense. What I discovered made the affair look like a minor power outage compared to the electrical fire she was really setting. Nicole hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been systematically draining our accounts, moving money into shell companies she'd created using her real estate connections, fake property management LLCs that existed only on paper, unreported cash commissions that should have been declared to the IRS. The woman was setting up to claim Coleman Electric was worthless while secretly stashing everything of real value. Her plan was beautiful in its deception, I'll give her that. File for divorce, claiming I was an abusive blue-collar guy with anger issues, probably using that college bar fight from 20 years ago that got me arrested for one night. Present my business as some struggling small-time operation with no real assets. Meanwhile, the actual money was being moved to offshore accounts and shell corporations that I'd never think to look for. You want to know the really twisted part? She was planning to frame me for tax evasion, while she was the one actually evading taxes. Classic projection. Blame the other guy for exactly what you're doing. But Nicole made one critical mistake. She underestimated the methodical mind that had built a successful electrical contracting business from nothing. See, I don't just wire buildings, I understand systems. And Nicole's financial fraud was just another system that needed to be analyzed, traced, and shut down permanently. I reached for my phone and dialed a number I'd had memorized for years. Wade Thompson answered on the second ring. We'd met on a commercial job where he was doing security consulting after retiring from Phoenix PD. Wade had traded police work for the more profitable world of private investigation, specializing in financial crimes and asset recovery. Good guy, straight shooter, the kind of cop who actually cared about catching the real criminals. "You sound like hell, Coleman," Wade said, recognizing the tension in my voice immediately. I didn't waste time on small talk. "I need a favor, Wade. Deep financial investigation on Nicole Coleman and Zane Brooks, bank records, shell companies, hidden assets. If they've moved money in the last year, I want to know where every penny went." Wade didn't hesitate. "Give me a week. This about the divorce?" "It's about a lot more than divorce," I replied. "She's not just leaving me. She's trying to steal everything I've built over 15 years and pin financial crimes on me in the process." "Understood. I'll be thorough." Wade delivered early. 5 days later, I was sitting in my home office reviewing files that made my blood run colder than touching a live 220 line. This wasn't just about Nicole stealing from our marriage. This was major league criminal activity. Zane Brooks wasn't just some gym owner trying to steal another man's wife for the thrill of it. The guy was running a sophisticated money laundering operation through his fitness business, washing cash for local drug dealers and using Nicole's real estate expertise to legitimize dirty money through property transactions. Nicole had been using her access to wealthy clients and property records to identify targets for identity theft and mortgage fraud. Together, they'd created a network of fake property management companies that existed solely to move money offshore. The gym was just a front. Nicole's real estate license was the key that opened every door in their operation. I'm talking about mortgage fraud on expensive Scottsdale properties, identity theft targeting her own clients, tax evasion schemes that would make the IRS foam at the mouth. These two weren't just having an affair. They were running a criminal enterprise that could have landed them both in federal prison for decades. And here's the part that really got me. Nicole was planning to destroy my reputation and business to cover her tracks. If the investigation ever got close to her, she'd point at her abusive ex-husband and claim I was the mastermind while she was just a victim. The perfect scapegoat. A blue-collar guy with a temper who nobody would believe over a sweet kindergarten teacher turned successful real estate agent. I began documenting everything with the same systematic precision I use for complex electrical installations. Files organized by date, financial trails mapped out like circuit diagrams, chain of custody maintained like I was preparing for the most important inspection of my career. Then, I did something that would have made Nicole's blood run cold if she'd known about it. I set up recording equipment in the house, perfectly legal in Arizona with single-party consent laws. Every conversation, every phone call, every word that came out of her mouth was being captured and preserved. You see, wars aren't won with anger or muscle or whatever they teach at CrossFit. Wars are won with superior intelligence, better planning, and perfect execution. Nicole thought she was playing chess while I was stuck playing checkers. She was about to learn that electricians are very, very good at setting traps. Nicole returned 3 days later to collect some of her things. She had no idea I was home, working in my garage office with the recording equipment running. She definitely had no clue that every word coming out of her mouth was being captured in crystal clear digital audio. I sat there listening through the thin walls as she made what would turn out to be the most expensive phone call of her life. Probably talking to Zane, maybe to her lawyer. Honestly, it didn't matter who was on the other end. What mattered was what she was about to confess. "Brady has no idea how easy this will be," Nicole said, her voice carrying clearly through the house like she was bragging to a girlfriend about some shopping deal she'd scored. "The business valuation comes back worthless next week. I already filed the domestic violence claims using that arrest from his college bar fight. Once the judge sees all that, the house is mine." I just sat there, letting the digital recorder do its work. My expression didn't change, but inside I was thinking, "Keep talking, sweetheart. Please, keep talking." And she did. Oh boy, did she ever. "The money's already moved offshore," she continued, getting more confident with each word. "Zane's contacts set up the Cayman accounts. By the time Brady figures out what happened, we'll be untouchable. The best part? The IRS will go after him for tax evasion while we're spending his money in Costa Rica. Let me tell you something about electrical work. Sometimes you have to let a faulty wire expose itself completely before you can fix the problem." Nicole was doing exactly that, laying out her entire criminal conspiracy like she was reading from a manual. She kept going, detailing how they'd use fake property management companies to launder drug money, how she'd been stealing client information for identity theft, how they planned to frame me for everything while they disappeared with close to $1 million of dirty money, plus everything I'd legitimately earned building Coleman Electric. When she finally left, I remained motionless for a long time. Then I walked to the bedroom where she'd been packing boxes, and my heart nearly stopped. One box sat open, filled with things she was throwing away. Our wedding album lay on top, apparently destined for the trash. I picked it up with hands that were steadier than they should have been. The leather cover was worn from years of handling. Inside, our faces looked back at me, young, hopeful, stupid. Me in that rented tux that pinched under the arms, her in the simple white dress her mother had altered because we couldn't afford a professional seamstress. There were photos of her parents, both gone now, George and Susan Foster, people who had welcomed me into their family like I was the son they'd never had. Good people who'd worked honest jobs their whole lives and died thinking their daughter had married a man who would protect her from the world's predators. A handwritten note was tucked into the back of the album. Nicole's father had written it on our wedding day. The paper had yellowed with age, but the words were still clear. Take care of our girl, Brady. We're trusting you with our greatest treasure. Welcome to our family, son. My hands started shaking slightly. The note blurred as unexpected emotion hit me like touching a bare wire. I thought about George Foster, a career electrician who'd taught me half of what I knew about the trade. The man had spent Saturday mornings showing me how to bend conduit properly, sharing coffee and electrical trade magazines, treating me like family. George had died 3 years ago, believing his daughter was safe, believing the young electrician he'd mentored would protect her from making bad choices. He'd never lived to see what Nicole had become, a criminal who was betraying everything he'd taught her about honesty and hard work. But here's the thing, George had also taught me. When you find a dangerous short in the wiring, you don't just ignore it and hope for the best. You trace it back to the source and fix it permanently, or the whole house burns down. I closed the album and carried it to my office. This wasn't about Nicole anymore. This wasn't about revenge or hurt feelings or wounded pride. This was about keeping a promise to a good man who trusted me with his most precious gift, even though she'd thrown that gift away. George Foster deserved better than what his daughter had become, and I was going to make sure she faced the consequences of her choices. Wade called back a week later with news that changed everything. "Brady, this is bigger than I thought," he said, his voice unusually serious. "Nicole and Zane's operation isn't just local. They're connected to a multi-state mortgage fraud ring that's been running for 2 years. The FBI has been investigating for months, but they need inside evidence to make arrests stick. What you've recorded could blow the whole thing wide open." I processed this information carefully. The weight of the decision hit me immediately. I had 2 choices here. I could fight the divorce, expose Nicole's fraud, probably win, and move on with my life. Or I could help bring down an entire criminal network that was stealing from honest people across multiple states. Let me tell you something about electricians. We understand the difference between fixing one broken outlet and rewiring the whole house to code. Sometimes you've got to think bigger than just your immediate problem. The decision took me exactly 5 seconds. "Connect me with the federal investigators," I said. "I'm offering full cooperation." "You sure about this? It's going to get complicated. These people play for keeps." I looked around my office, the electrical diagrams for honest projects, the business licenses I'd earned through hard work, the wedding album that reminded me of promises worth keeping. "Wade," I said quietly, "I've been getting shocked by live wires for 20 years. I think I can handle whatever these criminals want to throw at me." The divorce hearing came 6 weeks later. Let me paint you a picture of how confident Nicole and her legal team were walking into that courtroom. They strutted in like they owned the place. Nicole wearing this perfectly calculated outfit, professional but vulnerable, expensive but not too flashy. The kind of thing designed to make a judge think, here's a successful woman who's been abused by her blue-collar husband. Her lawyer was this smooth-talking guy in a $1,000 suit who probably charged more per hour than I made in a week. He presented their case with the kind of practiced confidence that comes from winning dozens of these things. Domestic violence allegations based on that 20-year-old bar fight. Financial irresponsibility claims. Character assassination disguised as legal argument. According to them, I was a dangerous blue-collar worker with anger management issues who couldn't be trusted with marital assets. They painted a picture of poor Nicole, this sweet kindergarten teacher turned successful real estate agent, living in fear while I supposedly terrorized her with my volatile behavior. Nicole performed like she was auditioning for an Oscar, dabbing her eyes with tissues, her voice trembling as she described the fear she'd been living with for years. How I'd become increasingly unstable as the business grew. How she was terrified of what I might do if she tried to leave. It was a masterclass in manipulation, I'll give her that. The woman could have made a fortune as an actress if she'd put half this energy into something legitimate. Judge Linda Torres sat there listening without expression, taking notes, asking the occasional clarifying question. A no-nonsense woman with 30 years on the bench who'd probably heard every sob story in the book. I sat motionless beside my attorney, watching my wife's performance with something that might have been admiration if it wasn't so disgusting. When Nicole's lawyer finished painting me as the villain in this little drama, my attorney stood up. Plain-spoken guy named Mike Rodriguez, who specialized in business law and didn't charge a fortune for fancy suits. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "we'd like to submit audio, evidence relevant to the claims made today." Nicole's face went white faster than touching a live wire. Her expensive lawyer jumped up like his pants were on fire, moving to object before he even knew what we had. But Judge Torres overruled him with a look that could have stopped traffic. "I'll allow it. Let's hear what you got." The courtroom went dead silent as my attorney connected his laptop to the sound system. Then, Nicole's voice filled the room, clear as a bell, laughing about how easy it would be to destroy me. Every word of her confession about the offshore accounts, the fake domestic violence claims, the tax evasion scheme, the plan to frame me while she and Zane disappeared with close to $1 million. Brady has no idea how easy this will be. The business valuation comes back worthless next week. I already filed the domestic violence claims using that arrest from his college bar fight. Once the judge sees all that, the house is mine. You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. Nicole tried to interrupt twice, claiming the recording was fake, but Judge Torres shut her down both times. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. The man had probably never been blindsided this badly in his entire career. The money's already moved offshore. Zane's contacts set up the Cayman accounts. By the time Brady figures out what happened, we'll be untouchable. The best part? The IRS will go after him for tax evasion while we're spending his money in Costa Rica. When the recording ended, you could feel the atmosphere in that courtroom change like the air pressure before a thunderstorm. Judge Torres removed her glasses and studied Nicole for a long moment, the kind of look that could strip paint off a wall. "Mrs. Coleman," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of 30 years dealing with liars and criminals. "I've presided over hundreds of divorce cases in my career. I've seen people at their absolute worst, fighting over everything from houses to household pets. But I don't think I've ever witnessed such calculated, deliberate fraud perpetrated upon this court." She turned to me, and her expression softened just slightly. "Mr. Coleman, I'm granting the divorce as requested. However, given the evidence of fraud and perjury presented today, Mrs. Coleman will receive nothing from the marital assets. Furthermore, I'm making an immediate criminal referral to the federal prosecutor's office for investigation of the financial crimes detailed in this recording." That's when Nicole completely lost it. She screamed something about the recording being illegal, about how I'd set her up, about how this wasn't fair. The bailiffs had to physically escort her from the courtroom, while she shrieked threats about appealing, about getting better lawyers, about making me pay for destroying her life. I just sat there watching her go. This woman I'd loved for 10 years, this stranger, who'd tried to destroy everything I'd built with my own hands, being dragged out of court like the criminal she'd become. I should have felt triumph, or satisfaction, or at least some sense of justice being served. Instead, I felt empty. Like watching a house burn down after you've already moved out. Sad, but inevitable. In the hallway afterward, a weathered man approached me. Calloused hands, the unmistakable bearing of someone who'd spent a lifetime working with his hands. I didn't recognize him immediately, but something in his eyes said he'd been waiting for this moment. "Mr. Coleman." His voice was rough, worn down by years and maybe some grief. "My name's Ryan Campbell. I worked with George Foster for 20 years at Industrial Electric before we both went independent. He talked about you all the time. His son-in-law, who was making something of himself in the electrical trade." The name clicked. George had mentioned Ryan dozens of times, his old partner who'd helped train half the electricians in Phoenix. "George was proud of what you built," Ryan continued, his eyes glistening but his voice staying steady. "He always said you were the kind of man who'd do right by his daughter, no matter what. He never lived to see what she became, but he knew the character of the man you were." Ryan's words hit me harder than I expected. My throat closed up completely as I thought about George Foster, teaching me to bend conduit on Saturday mornings, sharing coffee and trade magazines, treating me like the son he'd never had. The man who died believing his daughter was safe with someone who would protect her from making terrible choices. "Whatever she tried to do to you in there," Brian said quietly, "George would have been proud of how you handled it. You fought back the right way, with evidence in the law, not with your fists. That's what real men do when they're pushed too far." He patted my shoulder and walked away, disappearing into the courthouse crowd. I stood in that hallway for a long time, letting his words settle over me like a blessing I didn't know I needed. The war Nicole had started was over, but the real battle, the one for my reputation, my business, my honor in the community that mattered, that battle was won. The federal investigation moved like lightning after the divorce hearing. FBI agents raided Nicole's real estate office the next week, seizing computers, files, client records, everything. The local news picked up the story immediately, and suddenly Nicole's face was all over Phoenix television, under headlines like, "Real estate agent charged in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme." Let me tell you, watching someone who tried to destroy your life get their comeuppance on the evening news is sweeter than you might imagine. Nicole's professional headshot, the one she'd spent a fortune on to look successful and trustworthy, was now being broadcast next to mugshots and FBI press releases. The videos of Zane's illegal operations went viral online. His business license got revoked faster than a bad circuit breaker trips. His CrossFit certification was pulled. The gym closed overnight, leaving angry clients and a trail of unpaid debts. Mr. Tough Guy had to flee Phoenix with creditors and federal investigators breathing down his neck. I testified at Nicole's federal hearing 4 months later. Walked into that courtroom, wearing my best suit, carrying a folder full of evidence that would put her away for years. I spoke calmly, precisely, without a trace of anger, just facts, recordings, financial documents, the kind of methodical presentation that comes from years of explaining complex electrical systems to clients. The evidence was overwhelming: bank records showing the money transfers, shell company documents with her signature, recorded conversations where she detailed every aspect of the conspiracy, client information that had been stolen for identity theft, tax documents that hadn't been filed. The prosecutors had built a case so solid you could have run 220 volts through it without finding a weak point. Nicole broke down crying halfway through the proceedings, claiming Zane had manipulated her, that she was just a victim who'd gotten in too deep. But the recordings destroyed that defense completely. Every word she'd spoken proved she was the architect of the scheme, not some innocent bystander who'd been led astray. The sentencing hearing came 2 months later. I arrived early and sat in the back, away from the cameras and reporters who'd made this into the biggest fraud case in county history. Nicole shuffled in, wearing shackles and prison orange, her confidence completely gone. The designer clothes, the perfect makeup, the charm that had once convinced wealthy clients to trust her with million-dollar deals, all of it had vanished under the weight of federal prosecution. Judge Torres read the sentence like she was reading an electrical code violation. 8 years in federal prison for conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and tax evasion. Restitution of $1.2 million to victims. Permanent revocation of real estate license. Supervised probation for 5 years following release. Nicole looked at me one last time as the bailiffs prepared to lead her away. She was searching for something in my face. Hatred, maybe, or triumph, or satisfaction. Something that would make sense of how her perfect plan had exploded so completely in her face. I met her gaze without emotion and reached into my pocket. My wedding ring, the one I'd been carrying for months, unsure what to do with it. Now I knew exactly what it was for. I set it on the rail between us, the small piece of gold that had once represented promises we'd both broken in different ways. "You declared war on everything I built," I said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. "I don't lose wars, I didn't start." The months that followed were peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I threw myself back into Coleman Electric with energy I'd forgotten I had. Word of my integrity during the trial spread through Phoenix's construction community like wildfire. New contracts started rolling in from guys who wanted to work with someone they could trust completely. My reputation in the electrical trade became stronger than ever. The man who'd fought back against criminals the right way, who'd helped the FBI bring down a fraud network, who'd proven that blue-collar values still meant something in a world full of white-collar criminals trying to steal from honest people. Coleman Electric expanded beyond anything Nicole and I had built together. I hired 6 new electricians, took on bigger commercial projects, landed the contract to wire the new hospital complex downtown. The business my ex-wife had tried to steal was thriving in ways that would have been impossible if she'd stayed in my life. Sometimes, late at night in my workshop, I'd think about the whole ordeal, Not with anger anymore, but with grim satisfaction. Nicole had gambled everything on a criminal scheme and lost it all. Her freedom, her career, her reputation, everything she'd valued more than our marriage. One evening, as I finished installing a new electrical panel for a longtime client, my phone buzzed. Wade Thompson's number. "Got something you might want to hear, Coleman," he said. "There's a crew running workers' comp fraud specifically targeting electrical contractors. Big operation, hurting a lot of good people in the trades. Thought you'd want to know." I set down my wire strippers and smiled. Once, I would have ignored a call like this, focused only on building my own business and staying out of trouble. But I understood now that some battles were worth fighting, not for personal gain, but for the community that had supported me through the worst time of my life. "Send me the details," I said. "Let's shut these parasites down." For Brady Coleman, the real work was just beginning.